What is up, my Deuterinos? This is Mr. School back with another video. Today's topic is dating and marriage. Let's get into it. So, this video is going to be more about the process of how we get to dating and marriage. So, in order for you to even start the process of approaching, you need to you need looks. Like, looks is the prerequisite to the rest of the process. Face matters a lot too, or face rather matters probably the most, if anything. If your face is shit tier, if you're a fucking 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 face, you know, good fucking luck. This is why a lot of the advice a lot of the advice that PUAs and these snake oil salesmen give you doesn't work. Is because they don't know what it's like to have the hill to climb that you have to climb. Like if you're a 4 out of 10, you have a much bigger hill to climb than the 8 out of 10 guy. Your hill at the very beginning of your game, of the dating game, is it's insurmountable almost. It's almost impossible. It's not fair, but it's also dumb for these men to give you blanket advice that obviously won't work for you because you don't have the first prerequisite to do the rest of the process. The example I give here is that if you don't or can't learn to walk, then you can't run. Like a PUA giving you advice would be like a person who was born naturally able to run trying to explain to somebody how to walk. It's like, well, I already know how to run. I just did it, and he's trying to teach you, but your hill is different than his hill. He has no way of knowing what it's like to not know how to walk because he just came out of the womb running. He has no clue what it's like not to walk. He can't teach you anything. He can tell you how he runs, but that doesn't help you learn how to walk. It's the equivalent of if you're in college math, you can't go to college math for calculus and stuff like that. You can't do calculus without knowing algebra. It's a requisite like a college class. Like you need looks first and then everything else. Looks drives LMS and is a guide to spot your spot in the dating market. So, LMS is looks, money, and status. Money and status are somewhat tied to looks. So if you look good, via the halo effect, people will bestow good virtues onto you, like you're a hard worker, you must be worth the money we're giving you, stuff like that, which increases your money, which could increase your status. It's just more likely, it's more probable, it's more possible compared to somebody that's like a lower looks tier who might not get those. He might not get those same benefits of the doubt that a person who was a high tier would. Money without looks makes you beta bucks at best. So if you are, you know, if you are like a 4 out of 10 dude, but you got some money in your pocket, your best bet is beta bucks. You might get fucking cuckolded. You might end up raising another man's kid, which I guess is effectively being a beta buck, alpha fucks beta bucks. But you know what I'm getting at. You're just paying for her lifestyle, and she doesn't really love or even really like you. You're just there to pay the check, to pay the bills. And then money and status are normally tied to. This is pretty obvious one here. If you have a lot of money, you probably have a lot of status. There are plenty of or some ugly celebrities out there that are pretty ugly, but they have the status because they're because they have the money and they became famous. So it is what it is. Your looks is tied to your genes, so you have very little control. You have phenotypes and genotypes, and your environment affect all that stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's your genes. If your genes are shit, and you have a shit face, there's not much you can do about that. There are small things you can do, like gym maxing. That's the insult term for going to the gym and trying to be the lowest body fat that you can. That's one thing you can do. But there is no gym for your face. Good luck. At best, it's plastic surgery. Money without looks makes you beta bucks. Well, if you have the money but you don't have the looks, your best plastic surgery. Very risky, very expensive. But hey, if you have the money for the best plastic surgeon in the nation, be my guest. If you think it's worth it. Next up is the So once you pass the looks threshold or the looks test, you can approach. Now you can never really know if you passed the first test if you don't approach. This is what we call the cold approach, or the PUA bullshit cold approach. You hit a chick up in the gym, hit a chick up somewhere else, and you don't know the chick at all. She's giving you zero signs that she's into you. You're just cold approaching, and you're hoping that you can pass the looks test. This shit shouldn't even be like in your vocabulary anymore. Do not do this shit in this day and age. It's not worth it. You might go to jail if you do it if you do it in the wrong environment. You might lose a job. Don't do this shit. You're looking for the hot approach. This is something that I learned from VVS. He hasn't posted in a long time, but some people here might know his channel. VVS, it might not be his term, but I heard it from him. So he talks about the hot approach. The hot approach is when the woman is showing signs of interest in you. It's a much more sure idea that you've passed the looks test if she's looking at you and giving you signs of interest. If she's smiling at you, she's giggling, you notice her around you a lot, stuff like that. Small little subtle things that women do to show you that, hey, you should talk to me and approach me, I'm into you, type stuff. Okay, that's the hot approach. Take it if you get it. You got to kind of watch it a little bit longer than normal to see if she's really into you or not, but if she's into you, she'll probably make it somewhat known. This is when some of that PUA bullshit comes into play. You have smile, game, communication, all that stuff is not necessarily wrong. It's just that they're ignoring the first step of looks. You cannot approach until you pass the first test. You cannot take calculus until you pass Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and all the rest of the bullshit in between those two classes. You can't do it until you pass the first test. Once you pass that first test, this is why their advice doesn't work for the people that actually need it. Obviously, because you need the look first. So, smile, game, communication. Once again, you can't use the game bullshit, the PUA bullshit stuff that we all laugh at now. You can't use this stuff if you fail the first test. You just can't, obviously. You can't even go to Calculus 1 until you pass Algebra 2 or 3 or whatever advanced math class you need to get to the Calculus 1. Other things involved would be if you can text a girl, communication, text game, mouthpiece, stuff like that. Being able to talk to women. So you can't talk to the girl until you've done the approach game, but the approach game is tied to your looks game. And once again, approaching, do not cold approach. It's not worth it. Hot approach. I'm trying not to sound like a PUA right now. I'm trying to make it as objective as I can. But let's keep going. Once you approach and you've done the bullshit that women expect you to do during the approach period, you have the dating period. Okay? Once again, the PUA bullshit comes into play here. The info given, once again, isn't necessarily wrong, but they ignore so many factors involved in the game. They almost want to ignore looks, because if they actually brought up looks when it came to men in an honest way, they would lose so many subscribers and lose so much money, because the men they're trying to help are almost unsalvageable on some level. Approach in a dating game, approach is the prereq. So in order to get to the date, you have to approach first. Sometimes, majority of the time, if you want to date, you gotta approach. Dating could lead to sex, or rather, should lead to it. Sometimes, some women are looking for that big bag of marriage at the very end. They might not give you it, but once again, it could lead to sex, but rather it should lead to it. Most women out there are not. They might say they want marriage, but they'll give it up. And if they do give it up, she ain't marriage fucking material. She's just not. She's not worth the time for the marriage. It's effectively leasing instead of owning, which is more expensive. So, there was a really good comment on a YouTube video I saw a few months ago, probably. And it describes our interactions with women as 3 types of transactions. So, I have them all listed out here. We have rent, lease, and own. So, renting is effectively prostitution. It's cheap and there's no real upkeep. You use and abuse and walk away. You pay your fee for that enterprise car. You use it for a weekend and you turn it back in. Okay, whether or not that car's in running condition next week is not fucking your problem. Who gives a fuck? Use and abuse and walk away. Cheap as fuck. Leasing is girlfriend or long-term relationship material. So, if you're leasing, you're in a girlfriend situation or an LTR. You make a payment in the form of dating, exclusive attention access to her and you, hopefully. Obviously, this is a very, very weird position to be in, so she might cheat, you might cheat, but hey, generally, exclusive attention is expected. And it's effectively you're leasing with the option to buy. It's like kind of like your car, you're leasing with the option to buy. Okay, well, you lease for 36 months, and at the very end of that, hey, you want to buy this car? You might say yes or no. I don't know. A lot of people stay in this particular situation here or up here. You know, if you're banging out college co-eds, you're up here. It's just true. If you're in a relationship, you're over here. You're leasing. And then there's owning. Owning is marriage. Everything effectively in the lease is involved, except legally you are tied at the hip. Except for this one down here. Like, you're not, at this point here, you've bought. So, leasing and accounting wise, that's like the worst situation you can be in unless you're like leasing in like an exotic car. But other than that, owning is the way to go for the most part. But with marriage, it's a little bit different. But like all things, it's high risk. Like with ownership, it's very, very high risk. Like, yeah, you have almost ultimate risk. Like, you have to pay for the upkeep. It's all yours. Anything goes wrong in the house, or anything goes wrong with the woman, you got to pay for that. You got to pay for all the problems that come with owning stuff. There are very, very few perks. Extremely few perks when it comes to marriage. And it could be less expensive, but it could be less expensive in the long run. Owning is often the less expensive option compared to leasing. But with women, once again, it's a little bit different. So, if I could make another analogy, renting would be like working a regular job. Leasing would be like being a contractor, but more like a one-man show. And marriage is akin to running a business, running an actual real corporation. You need upfront capital or a loan, which involves risk. And it could fail, which means that you could lose everything. So when it comes to risk tolerance, you have low risk, medium risk, high risk. Extremely high risk. Very risky. And of course, marriage is the last step of dating, or rather the last step past dating. This is the woman's desired outcome. They want to be married. They want commitment, which they perceive to be marriage. Even though a LTR is still commitment, but they want that tie. They want that. I want that ring, and I want that party. Well, sorry, most women don't even deserve that party. Yeah, sometimes post-wall. Once again, women desire this sometimes post-wall, but the more virtuous ones, it's the outcome from the start. So if they're like a virgin, it might be worth it. But if this is some post-wall slut, dude, don't bother. It's the arena where children should be involved. You could have children in an LTR, and they could probably still be in a stable environment, but generally, this is the environment where people are talking about kids and what they want to do with kids. Your resources and connections are tied. Yeah, well, like I said earlier, you're legally tied at the hip. Now with marriage, though, I'm gonna. This is like really the kind of the crux of this video now. So we got this question here of like, is marriage for everyone? Is it for everyone? The question is a bit misleading, but rather it's a question of, should most people even bother with marriage or ownership? For the average person, a 9-to-5 job works. For the next step up, a small business or being a contractor works for them. But very few people have the temperament to be a CEO or a husband. A lot of people peak in high school and live with that mentality, high school mentality, their entire life. In my opinion, a person like this isn't mature enough for marriage. They don't have what it takes. Most women aren't even worthy of the title of wife. When you have more bodies on you than a morgue, what right do you have to walk down the aisle in a white dress? What right do you have to a diamond ring? For the men, most men don't really have the temperament for marriage either. It takes a strong person to maintain a marriage. Any idiot can get married, but few can keep it going. Any idiot can start a business, but few will ever be truly successful. At the end of the day, most men and women are basic. They're base. If you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, then you can't turn a fuckboy into a husband. I would even extend this to parenthood. Most women are not fit to be mothers. Shitting out a kid is not the same thing as raising it. And most men are not fit to be fathers. A jizzing in a woman is easy, but raising productive members of society is hard. Both parenthood and marriage require time and commitment that most people aren't actually willing to give up. It requires a steady hand and nerves of steel. Marriage was marriage was traditionally seen as a pact or alliance between two families. It was seen as an economic liaison between two families, and love be damned. While in today's world people marry for love, or at least attempt it, it is still very much an economic transaction. There's your fucking black pill for you. And in fact, there have been articles about this in in like regular, ordinary news. I think it was one of the New York Post had an article about that, talking about how it's an economic transaction. It's true. Like, the love, quote unquote love, is just a sugarcoat for it. It's a sugarcoat that pill of like, hey, dude, in reality, this is like for economics, but here's the sugarcoat of love on it. Oh, look, that pill's a little bit easier to swallow now because we put some sugar on it. But at the end of the day, when that sugar wears off, you know damn well that you're in that marriage for the fucking money. This probably happens today. Rich families want to keep their wealth, and people often marry within the same class. Perhaps this quote unquote destruction of marriage is simply a return to normal. What I mean there is that perhaps the majority of people just flat out shouldn't get married. I won't use the word worthy here, but like you don't need marriage. A lot of people don't need marriage. Just because women want something doesn't mean that you have to give them it. So like if every woman in the world wants marriage, like they don't deserve it. Most of them don't fucking deserve it, and most people don't even need it. Like if marriage is an economic transaction, most people don't have anything anyway. The majority of people don't have wealth. The majority of people don't have money, and the majority of people work shit tier jobs and do shit tier things. Like this sounds elitist, and it is on some level. The majority of people aren't special. I don't think I'm that special either, but the majority of people are not fucking special. They aren't. They don't amount to a hill of beans, and to pretend as if everything's equal, that Jim, Bob, and Susie in the trailer park is the same as John and Anne in living outside of like Washington D.C. are the same when it comes to their marriage prospects. It's absurd. The reason for you could argue that Jim, Bob, and Susie getting married is more love based, but at the end of the day, that marriage is probably more likely to fail because of the economic environment is just so shit. Whereas the other one, while it might not start off in a love tier, a love like relationship, might actually stand the test of time because at least they're more honest about what they're actually looking for. Oh man, so this has been Mystery School. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Never forget that wisdom is gold. This was a fun video to make, so I hope you guys liked it. See you guys later.